He bends down, I get nervous.
Hey, welcome into the PHNX Cardinal podcast presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Amidst some technical difficulties, but we are live here in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate the patience as we go through some technical difficulties because we are remote. We are on the road here in Indianapolis for PHNX Cardinals Live at the NFL Combine. And Saul, we had an opportunity to take in all of the festivities, if you will, for our first Combine. What is your experience thus far?
It's been pretty fun.
Yeah.
It was a little nerve-wracking right there as we had Ryan bending over to unplug stuff and purposely sabotage our show.
Yeah.
They've hated us since we arrived.
Yep.
And
I
tried.
think it was more of like a circuit break.
We showed up and they had like this Suburban that was absolutely packed to the gills and said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a ride to the Airbnb." From that, the tone was set.
They're trying to steal Kyler Murray from us. We will not let it happen. But in all seriousness, DMVR peeps have been fantastic. PHNX Cardinals at our very first Combine.
Yep. And
boy, oh boy, what an opportunity to break it in. We have heard from both Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury within the last several hours. And really, we didn't have a podcast yesterday to break down the Kyler Murray statement via his agent, Eric Burkhart, because, of course, we were on the road. But Kliff and Keim both spoke on that, but Saul, your initial reaction to that statement yesterday from Kyler Murray?
Well, first of all, obviously it was through his agent, and his agent is trying to do whatever he thought was in his best interest, and I'm here to tell you that was the worst thing he could have done. That was an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
I don't know what the thought process was behind this. We've speculated, maybe this is an agent that's kind of scrambling, trying to figure out, how to keep his client happy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Kyler Murray is the easiest individual to work with, but And as we're talking, we literally have Steve Keim on the TV here in the background. I've never seen this before. And I just thought it was you're grasping at straws right now.
Yeah.
You still got plenty of time to work on a deal. Why go to this panic move all of a sudden? I just didn't understand it.
So much to unpack with regard to Murray, Eric, and his statement. But before we do that, Steve Keim spoke earlier today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and the first thing we asked him was about Kyler Murray's contract discussions. Conversations with Kyler and his agent on a potential new contract.
I have not talked to them in a few days, but there's always been current dialogue. The one thing I'll say is in regards to the statement, I know everybody's seen that. I think it's an agent doing his job. I have a lot of respect for Eric Burkhart and obviously Kyler Murray. From my standpoint, like it's always been moving forward, any kind of speculation, any negotiations, any conversations and dialogue will be certainly held confidential between the three of us.
What do you think when you find it?
Nothing groundbreaking there from Steve Keim, very close to the chest. Clearly, I think the sense that I got, Saul, was they want Kyler Murray around, but very much on their terms. And I didn't get the sense one way or the other that they felt like this was maybe too early in the process, even though, goodness, the general consensus of the public feels like it is. Yeah. But I'm writing an article right now, gophnx.com, about I do think that Keim and Kliff, who we'll hear from here in a little bit, handled their business well amidst all of this drama and really commended Eric Burkhart and Kyler Murray. They're just taking care of business.
Yeah, we'll get to Kliff here in a second because I felt like I was watching two different movies.
Okay.
I thought Keim – hey, listen, there's a reason why Steve Keim is still the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, and it's because he knows how to talk to people.
Yeah.
He knows how to relay a message. He's very good in terms of painting a picture that's not total chaos, but not a perfect picture.
Yeah.
Right? And listen, he articulated this in a way that made you understand, like, hey, we value Kyler Murray, but just like with every player, there's a production value and a monetary value, and you got to find a happy medium somewhere in the middle. And listen, we know where this organization stands in terms of the value they place on a good quarterback. They've seen plenty of horrible quarterbacks come through those doors and lead them to nowhere. They understand the value that Kyler Murray has. I think they, along with all of us, don't really know what Kyler Murray's potential is.
Yeah.
I think we've seen some glimpses of brilliance. But again, when you're talking about the second half failures in back-to-back-to-back seasons, like, where are we going with this? And, that will give anybody hesitation.
Absolutely, and he brought up, that being Steve Keim, his past negotiations with people like DeAndre Hopkins that took it upon himself not to have an agent and to negotiate his own contract. And all of these situations are different. There are different dynamics. I know a lot of folks in the media are trying to paint a picture as it relates to, well, does Kyler deserve a contract because it's after his third year and it fits the bill with somebody like a Josh Allen or a Carson Wentz or a Jared Goff once upon a time? And Keim was very reluctant to commit to that, basically stating that, again, everything is different. Nothing is on a definitive timeline. They have to do what's best for the team. And he also emphasized not only looking at this year, but future years and the cost commitment pertaining to that. But just to put a bow on the discussions itself, I do think that he appears to be very receptive and believes Kyler Murray will be around long term. He was asked point blank, Steve, do you feel like Kyler Murray could potentially hold out and not show up for off-season team activities if he doesn't get a contract? And he was very blunt in stating, no, I do not believe that's going to happen.
Bro, listen.
You probably feel differently.
No, I feel absolutely the same. Like, listen, Kyler, if you want to go fucking play baseball, which isn't even in existence right now, you can't even go play unless you want to go toil around in Reno, Nevada with 1,000 fans watching you on a day-to-day basis, have at it.
Yeah.
Go have all the fun you want. Go wet your whistle.
Well, we do know Kyler's athleticism is a differentiator, and Keim also spoke about his quarterback as an athlete and how dynamic he can be.
I mean, obviously, Kyler Murray to me is just different from anybody that I've evaluated in 23 years of doing this. And that's from a skill set standpoint, talking about a guy that has his ability to throw with accuracy, touch. He can do it all. And he has a high level of competitiveness and wants to be great. So those are all obviously very good strengths.
So you hear those comments, and you hear the comments about Kyler improving every year, and then, of course, we're hanging with the DMVR peeps, and they're in quarterback purgatory, and, you've got Chris Ballard basically lamenting Carson Wentz publicly today, and it's like, is Kyler Murray perfect? He is not. Is he, a little bit flawed player, and he's got some introvert qualities? Of course. But goodness, it is quarterback hell for, I would say, a third of these organizations here. Steve Keim is fortunate not to be in that position.
Shoot, you do not want to be in that boat without a paddle.
No.
Man. I'm telling you what. It's true. To get a bigger perspective on what is going on across the NFL, like it's the haves and the have-nots, and you don't want to be in the ladder.
Yeah.
Last year at this time, you were talking about how the Broncos GM had talked about, finding a good quality cornerback is far more valuable than a quality quarterback.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for them this year?
Worked out for fourth place in the ultra-competitive AFC West.
Yeah.
And you're picking top 10 in the draft. I mean, that's where Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury know where they – well, first of all, they'd be unemployed if they somehow lost Kyler Murray.
Absolutely.
He has kept them employed each of the past 3 years, and he gives the Cardinals the best chance, in my opinion, to compete in what is the best division in football.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm excited to see where this is going to go, and I say excited with a little bit of a trepidation, obviously, because I don't want this to go as sour as it feels like it kind of has already. Yeah. Listen, we'd be fools to think that there isn't some type of disruption between the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. There's a little bit of unhappiness, but as we're about to hear on one of Keim's final comments about Kyler Murray is just really the relationship between negotiating a contract and not getting your feelings hurt. You can't be all up in your feels, and understanding your value to the franchise, which we're about to listen to Keim right now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it has a lot to do with what your current roster makeup is. Everybody has different situations. Everybody has different areas where how much cap room they have to clean up, how much room they actually have. Some teams have a lot of room. Generally, those teams didn't have a very good record, as we know. So the fact that we won 11 games, we'll be able to make some moves. But again, as you go into, and Michael talked about the complexity of things, how you structure certain contracts, how you defer money, how you play with the cap. There's a number of things that go into it that do take time, and certainly the manpower to look into the analytical side of it and the areas where you can improve.
Love him or hate him, Steve Keim is a very shrewd negotiator. He can be very cutthroat. He cut off contract talks with Patrick Peterson. I believe he's done the same with Chandler Jones, even though I asked him today, are you going to keep tabs on Chandler? Oh, yeah, we'll talk with his reps, but you ask Chandler Jones, especially on social media, it doesn't look like that's happened. And of course, last offseason, he asked for a trade because contract discussions weren't going anywhere. So I think that's where a lot of the fan base becomes nervous with regard to Kyler Murray's situation because, I'm not going to go on here and call Kyler Murray an overly sensitive guy, but you talked about in the fields and you talked about it being a business, that being Steve Keim and not being personal. I mean, that stuff clashes now, and it clashes publicly.
No, for sure. Listen, can you imagine a scenario where you're representing yourself like D-Hop did, and you go in there and you got to hear from Steve Keim, listen, this is what the top receivers in the NFL are doing. These are the things that you can improve in. This is why you don't deserve X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And then trying to go back and forth and try to state your case with the person that's ultimately going to pay you.
Yeah.
That's a pretty hard position to be in. You got to be thick-skinned. You can't take that personally.
No.
And Steve Keim did that with D-Hop. So now you're having somebody else speak on your behalf now with Eric Burkhart.
Yeah.
And Kyler is trying to figure out what his value is. He obviously, listen, I believe Kyler has dudes in his corner that are hyping him up to be the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Oh, if they only had this and they only had this. Well, listen, it's not always going to be perfect. We talked about that earlier. We've heard that all day. Nothing's ever going to be structured in a perfect way for you. You're going to get dinged up. You're going to get injured. You're going to have other players that you're going to miss. How are you going to perform in those situations? And we saw this year that he didn't perform very well.
No.
Like, he struggled big time.
He did.
So that's when we're talking about a franchise-level quarterback that gets premier money in the NFL. Can you overcome those obstacles? And that's what the Cardinals are having to weigh right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray is an electric brand. He's a brand that I have argued is bigger than the Cardinals right now. And to your point, his team and Kyler Murray, they know that. They know that he went to an organization that was picking first in the draft, immediately made them relevant. Each of the past 2 seasons, 500 or better, right? But they also play in a division where, I mean, you can make an argument, he's the second or third best quarterback on certain Sundays with Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford. And so that's where you can't just be status quo. Like, for instance, like the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott, because you're feasting on a poor division. The Cardinals have to keep their foot on the gas because they will get left behind. We asked Kliff Kingsbury earlier today about, the status of how they feel like they're doing in the division, and he was like, I feel like we're getting closer every year. But, I mean, much of that is with regard to Kyler. Can Kyler outplay Stafford and Russell Wilson and, San Francisco and play well in the division? And it's about completing a 17-game season. So, and playing at a high level. But, I mean, we'll talk more about Kyler as it relates to Kliff's comments. But, I made a point to ask Steve Keim today, are you overly frustrated with the lack of not only production but reps from your back-to-back first-round picks? And here was his response on the matter.
Well, I think you always want, in an ideal world, you want somebody to come in right away and contribute. But there are certainly growing pains that all players sort of step into. And I think with the COVID situation, set a number of those players back, not to make excuses. But both of those guys, the picks 8 and 16 respectively, we expect them to have major contributions next year.
So, again, Keim saying all the right things, and he even kind of snuck in, I don't know if it was in the bite or not, a COVID-esque excuse of why, Xavier and Isaiah Simmons, which is the players he was referencing, didn't play a whole lot.
Which every other rookie had to deal with that as well, and they performed just fine.
Jamar Chase didn't seem like he had that problem. Micah Parsons didn't seem like he had that problem.
Yeah.
So, again, he knows he's under pressure. And pick 23 is interesting because – do you feel like you need an immediate contributor? I just think you need a pick, and we've talked about it all offseason, Saul. Clarity. Somebody that can come in. They know the position they're playing. They have a role to fill, a void to fill. Just plug them and play them and live through their mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. But, man, after listening today, I mean, we kind of got a vibe that maybe cornerback was going to be a premier position that they were going to be looking at.
Yeah.
And earlier, I thought that maybe that wasn't as big a position of need as it's starting to kind of feel around this organization. So the development thing is such a conundrum for this franchise right now. That's why the second half struggles seem to be so prevalent, is because you feel like as the course of the season goes on, you should probably just get better and better, or at least get into more of a groove, and that's not what's happening. They're in a groove at the beginning of the season, but not so much at the end. When you're talking about player development, it looked like Zaven Collins was going to be that starting inside linebacker.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, he barely got any run. Why is that?
Yeah, and they have said, Keim and Kliff both took responsibility today and said they have to do a better job in getting those players, Simmons and Collins. Remember, Simmons didn't start the wild card game against the Rams, getting those guys more playing time. I don't know how you do that with Vance Joseph as your defensive coordinator. That's something they will have to figure out internally. A couple quick things. They said Zaven Collins is staying at inside linebacker. He's not moving to outside linebacker, which a lot of people speculated. I assume the same thing goes for Isaiah Simmons. Keim said, of course, we'd love to have Jordan Hicks back. And then he also made a point to kind of interweave this, which I thought was interesting, Saul. He basically said that it was a defensive decision, a consensus, to take Zaven Collins last year, meaning that the defensive coaches and Vance Joseph were all good with the pick. And I know Keim gets a lot of blame about, well, we all remember draft day, right? Taking Zaven Collins, boasting on the phone, he's going to play right away, there's no redshirt seasons. And then he proceeded to redshirt basically his entire rookie season. So he made a point today, he's like, we were all on the same page, guys, and then the season happened, and Jordan ended up playing more.
I still don't understand it.
I don't either.
I still don't understand. Listen, you can understand why Jordan played more, but I just don't understand why Zaven Collins played as little as he did and behind Joe Walker.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about a premier athlete, and listen, if you're a top 10 pick, you're considered a premier athlete.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm talking about Isaiah Simmons, obviously. Like, you cannot let that happen. And then you move forward another year, and Zaven Collins, the same thing. Premier athletes in the top 20 in the top 20 picks, you got to perform, you got to play.
Yeah.
And if they're not playing, you got to find out the reasons why. And we asked about, the second half failures, and they said that they've identified some of these things and tried to, maneuver, but it's still like it's almost as if they are not being able to pinpoint exactly what the problem is because there is not one solution. It's like they had all laid out, like, listen, injuries. Kliff took it on the chin today and said that it was his fault that he didn't scheme appropriately once D-Hop left the team and got hurt. Like, these are all things that we've been pointing out.
Yeah.
We've been talking about. They talked about Rondale Moore being a little bit more accessible in the offense and exposing his or expanding his role. Like, these are obviously we're talking about the offensive side of the ball, but these are all things that collaboratively led to their demise as we go to the end of the season.
Yeah.
And when you're watching player development, and I would argue that the offensive side of the ball is just as lackluster in player development as the defensive side of the ball when you watch what Rondale Moore was able to do despite being held back by Kliff Kingsbury. That's the truth.
Yeah. It's interesting. He also made, that being Steve Keim, a couple quick notes. He did say that they're going to pick up Kyler Murray's fifth-year option. He did say that, Christian Kirk has been the ideal teammate, first in the building, great guy to be around. But subsequently, we're hearing that, we reported this in February, at least I did, that, it's very likely that a lot of the Cardinal free agents, including Christian Kirk, leave for other teams. And he talked up, it's funny, he left out a lot of names pertaining to next March or this March to re-sign. But he talked about two stars in particular that they said needed to be re-signed on top of Kyler Murray, Byron Murphy and Jalen Thompson, which I thought was really interesting given the fact that they have this robust group of free agents that it doesn't seem like if you're waiting on a Zach Ertz or a James Conner or Chase Edmonds to be re-signed before free agency, it's not probably going to happen. So they're going to go out and they're going to participate in this freedom frenzy, but they've got some internal guys that they want to discuss bringing back so they don't get to that point next year.
I also thought that the phrasing that he used was very interesting. Deserving of a contract.
Yeah.
When you use those words, deserving of a contract, that illustrates more than just like his contract's up and we want to re-up him. Like, deserving a contract means that in their eyes, you've done everything that they've asked you to do. You performed at a level that they expected you to perform at or exceeded it, and you're a good guy to be around. Like, those are the main three cogs of what we're talking about. So I do wonder, to what extent are they not seeing these things from some of the other guys? Like, listen, if they don't bring back Christian Kirk, you got to ask that question. What about Christian Kirk led you to believe that he wasn't that kind of guy? Was it his performance on the field? Was it, his work work habits, in and around the locker room. Like, what was it about him that you didn't necessarily feel like you were getting a return on value? Of course, you want all these guys back. Every GM, every coach always says that they want all their guys back. But in a perfect world, I would even say that half of that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just flat out, because you don't want some of those guys back because you feel like you can improve in other areas. That's what the Cardinals are probably going to try and do.
Yep, I would prepare yourselves for a very busy and active March for the Cardinal free agents, and maybe not so much for the Arizona Cardinals themselves. I don't get the sense, Saul, that they are making it a priority to bring back the large majority of their free agents. I think you can expect a lot of their guys to end up on other teams. Quickly here, when Covington and Masvidal step into the octagon this Saturday at UFC 272, DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC, has a knockout offer for new customers. Bet just $1 on that main event. Get $100 in free bets no matter what. First knockout in the first round. Knockout in the first round, you get paid. Again, use that promo code PHNX. Majority draw, you get paid. As I lose my ad read, and I'm going to have to scroll down here. Double knocking results in a no contest ruling. You get $100 in free bets no matter what the outcome is. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. It's a call to action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code PHNX and bet on UFC 272, that main event. Get $100 in free bets no matter what happens in that fight. Again, PHNX is the promo code. It's the official sports betting partner of the UFC, 21 and over. Arizona-only gambling problem. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEPS. New customer only. You do have to deposit a minimum of $5. Eligibility restrictions. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for more details.
Jalen Blair in the chat says, so does that mean the Cards plan to be active in signing other teams' free agents?
I would say I would expect a lot of one-year prove-it deals like we saw last year, like an A.J. Green, like a James Conner in early April, right? I do not, outside of maybe corner, again, which I asked Kliff if he was comfortable with Byron and Marco, and he said we need to add bodies to that room. I think if you're going to see one significant contract outside of re-signing somebody like a Zach Ertz or somebody like that internally, I think they'll spend money on a corner.
Yeah, agreed, 1,000%. That's where I was going to go with that. Is if they listen, Keim isn't afraid to spend money.
No.
Like, he's shown that. This organization has shown that over the last 15 years. They're not afraid to go out there and make a splash and try to get some guys, some high-value guys and some high-value contracts from their perspective, right? J.J. Watt, for example.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where it goes, but I would absolutely agree with you. Cornerback is going to be a position that they look in free agency.
If you would have asked me going into this week, is J.C. Jackson an option for this team? I said, probably not.
I think he is now.
After these comments, because what would you rather do if you're Keim and Kingsbury? Take a corner at 23 who's not going to be probably as good as Byron or Marco next season, or sign a guy in free agency and immediately plug and play, and then maybe get an edge rusher or receiver that you can start. I think that's the route they want to take, and it bears watching. Something else that was worth watching today, Kliff Kingsbury as a regard to the Kyler Murray, Eric Burkhart statement. And the first thing I asked him when he stepped to the podium, what are your comments on Kyler and everything going on?
I have.
What were your thoughts on that?
It's part of the business. He has a job to do, and that's what he was doing.
How much have you been in touch with him since he's come out?
With Eric?
Kyler.
Oh, with Kyler? I have not.
Did Eric talk to you about the statement before he put it out?
No. We keep those things separately. Like I said, we understand it's a business, and he's doing his job.
From your vantage point, how urgent is that situation to keep your quarterback satisfied?
I think all of our long-term goal here is to have Kyler be our quarterback, and he understands that, and he understands my view of him and how I feel about him. And once again, I'm going to refer it back to the business side of things, and that's not something that I deal with. But it's all part of the business right now, and things that we'll continue to work through.
Will you talk to Kyler at all, either in person or over text, to hash it out a little bit?
I do consistently. We're in a great place. So I just haven't talked to him since yesterday. I guess that was the question you asked. Since the statement.
No. Are you going to plan in the future to sit down and talk to him about this and his?
Yeah, I talk to him consistently.
About what?
about football. Yeah, what we work together on.
Kliff's a fun guy. He first approached the press conference today before taking any questions. He said, hey, just a quick programming note. Steve Keim will be here later, and he's really excited to talk to you all. So I think he knew kind of tongue-in-cheek what was about to happen after his own agent, Eric Burkhart, released the statement on behalf of Kyler Murray yesterday. But a quick couple things I took away from that, Saul. He didn't know Eric was releasing that statement. I'm not sure I believe that, but okay. He hasn't talked to Kyler Murray since the statement has been released. He loves Eric.
But that was only yesterday.
That's true. He loves Eric. That's not going to change, right? He's not dropping Eric, and he loves Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. That's what I took away from that.
What I took away from that is you just don't want to talk about this, is what it is. It's a conflict of interest.
Yes.
I really believe that. It's a conflict of interest when you have your own quarterback represented by the same agent that you have.
Yeah.
I don't know how you navigate that. And come on, man. Don't tell me that bullshit about, I didn't know it was going to happen. I haven't talked to him since the statement came out, blah, blah, blah. I know damn well they've talked. They had to have talked. You know what I mean? You don't want to blindside your own client either. Kliff, hey, just want to give you a heads up. This is happening tomorrow. That's probably all that was said.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's the same kind of communication he had with Kyler Murray during the season when Eric and Kliff leaked out that he was potentially a replacement for Lincoln Riley at the University of Oklahoma. The three of them are, I think, in constant communication, number one, because I'm sure Kliff is Kyler's biggest cheerleader in the room. Kliff knows if I'm going to succeed, I have to have Kyler Murray with me, pay Kyler whatever you want. Also, it's his agent. So, again, he has bestowed faith onto him. And I think there are a lot of people who believe that Kyler Murray and Kliff Kingsbury are tied to the hip. Now, we'll see if that rings true a year from now and they have to make some changes if the season doesn't go well. But I do think that Kliff Kingsbury, for all the flack that he gets, he is able to come up and be a grown-up in regard to this situation. Again, we've seen other coaches, they haven't been able to keep it together, right? And Kliff is very much pro-Cardinals and pro-Kyler. And I also think it's easier for Kliff because, he knows with the way he finished the season, he doesn't have leverage. People argue, does Kyler have leverage? Kliff doesn't have any. So he knows, I have to put my head down and grind right now.
The interesting thing with Kliff, and this is what I was talking about, this is what I was referring to in terms of two different television shows, if you will. I thought Keim doesn't have that conflict of interest, right?
Yeah.
And so he's able to speak a little bit more clearly about the relationship between everybody.
Yeah.
And when he says something, I don't feel like he's full of shit when it comes to, Eric Burkhart's. When he says, his agent's doing what his agent's supposed to do. I believe Keim.
Yeah.
When Kliff says it, I'm like, but is he? You know what I mean? I just want – there's always that seed of doubt that I'm I don't believe it. And also, listen, Kliff very much tried to squash questions today.
Yes, he did.
Tried.
Yeah.
He tried to give one-word answers, but, hey, credit to the media that was here because it is a national media event. It is not just, the Arizona guys.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we have a tendency to just be like, well, we'll let this one go and we'll come back to it another day, whereas the national media is like, but – but and then other local, we obviously we saw Darren Urban here, Josh Weinfuss, they were asking questions, and people want answers.
Yeah.
Enough with this one answer BS, and enough with the trying to be we'll have to look at these things to see if we can get them corrected. BS that he tries to spew.
Yeah.
We need answers as to why things are happening. The public wants to know, and they deserve to know.
Kliff confirmed that Kyler Murray, he feels like is in good standings with the organization, that he wants to be a Cardinal. They obviously want him to be a Cardinal. He also said and was asked, have you seen Kyler Murray improve on a lot of the things he's been critiqued on, that being the leadership, et cetera? And he says he's seen exponential growth from his first year to his third year. And, of course, we've seen that. I think that Kyler has evolved clearly since he first came into the league as a rookie in 2019. Now, has he evolved enough? That's an argument for a different day. Has he evolved enough, Saul, to be a $40+ million a year quarterback annually? I think a lot of people would push back on that idea. But they're in a very, I don't know, they're in an uncomfortable position because of the fact that Kyler and Eric are putting such a point of emphasis and putting pressure on the organization to where, Michael Bidwell came out on local radio Friday and basically tried to squash all this before the Combine. thought that they were in good standings with Kyler Murray and Eric Burkhardt, and that, hey, we're taking it in stride. We're in the Kyler Murray business. We're happy with everything. We're talking to him. And then for Eric and Kyler to basically throw a bomb on Combine Week with that statement yesterday, that was, we talk about it, the aesthetics of that statement, all caps, multiple paragraphs, difficult to read, the funky logo. It basically overtook a presser for both of them that I don't think that they anticipated nor they wanted.
It was unnecessary.
Yeah.
The whole thing was unnecessary. Yesterday was just why?
Yeah.
Like why? And, and we talked to several people here at the Combine to kind of get the feel of what the pulse is nationally from this whole drama scenario. And for a large portion of them, they said, that what Eric Burkhardt did yesterday was just, it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was, it was irrelevant. There was no need for it. Listen, we're still in the middle of a contract negotiation, apparently. Like I guess. I know we're full-fledged in the middle of it now.
Yep.
Like, if it wasn't clear before, it is absolutely clear now.
Yeah.
And it's a process, Hey, listen, they're going to get it figured out. I really do believe they're going to get it figured out. Before today, you and I talked, and I said, I have a bad feeling Kyler's going to get traded at some point.
Yeah, you did say
After today, I feel much better about where the Cardinals and their relationship with Kyler sit. And you basically have to take a flyer on hope with Keim and Kliff and believe it. What they're saying is true. Listen, they tried very carefully to not say anything and not put their own foot in their mouth. They did a very good job of that today.
They did.
I do believe Kyler has improved very much so from his rookie season to his third season in terms of leadership, growth, performance. But again, what is that range there?
Yeah.
Right? That's very subjective. Like, if we're talking about you're going from some introvert and now you're Peyton Manning, okay, cool. But I don't feel like that's what we're talking about. If it's a 1 to 10 scale in terms of Kyler to Peyton Manning, Kyler probably went from like 1 to 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's still good growth.
Yeah.
But is it the growth that you pay a franchise quarterback big-time money for? I don't know.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to connect with Josina Anderson, and she brought up a good point of these third-year quarterback extensions, they do happen, but they happen in the summer. They don't happen right after the season was over. And we get the sense that Kyler and Eric went to the team right after that wild card game amidst everything negative with this team and basically said, hey, let's open up discussions. We're ready to talk contract. To the team, very non-receptive to that at the time, which we believe has led to the social media scrubbing, the statements that are now coming out. So you could probably make an argument the team was taken back by all this. And then when you look at a lot of the other quarterbacks that have got paid after their third year, remember, Lamar Jackson still hasn't been extended yet. He's got an MVP and multiple playoff bursts under his belt. Baker Mayfield wanted a contract, didn't get one, and now he's hurt and entering, his fifth-year option. I'm sure Kyler sees all of that and is like, I want to get paid now. I'm undersized.
I don't understand this panic room movement. You ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Where it's like, why?
Yeah.
What are you in such a rush for right now? I understand that your third year's done. I understand you don't want to get into your fourth season, but there's still.
Do you feel like? And I brought this up to Josina. Do you feel like it's because the GM and the head coach are lame ducks potentially, and you also want to be able to attract other players to the market? And it's like, if I'm Kyler Murray, I'm like, yeah, I want to be the man. I want a unified front. I want players to want to come play here. I want security. Maybe it feels like he doesn't have that. Which is insane if you talk to Michael Bidwell, because what the hell are they going to do if they don't have Kyler Murray?
Well, Lamar Jackson's won an MVP and been a little bit more successful than Kyler Murray in the playoffs, and he still doesn't have a contract extension.
That's true.
Jalen Blair has pointed that out in the chat, obviously.
Yep.
Thank you, Jalen. Listen, so Kyler Murray has done neither of those things, and he's asking for franchise-type money. We saw a graphic today by Pro Football Focus saying the estimated value of his contract would be 6 years, and I think it was $275 million.
$46 million per year.
Yeah, $46.5 million per year. Are you paying that for him? I'm not. I'm not ready to do that.
No.
I just didn't. Not after that performance. Because, listen, people are going to remember what the last thing you did was. And the last thing I remember Kyler Murray doing was throwing that fucking underhanded bullshit pass for an interception and a touchdown. That's what I remember. I remember sitting there getting trashed by Rams fans around me because little Kyler Murray wasn't showing up for the big game.
Yep, the Cardinals are still debating on how much they want to invest on Kyler Murray. Meanwhile, you can invest in us, become a part of our PHNX family at gophnx.com. You can get a membership for the next calendar 12 months, just under $60. You can dip your toe in 50 cents for the first month, $8.99 for the subsequent month. You can get a free T-shirt from our PHNX merchandise locker like my guy Saul's got on right now, some Southwest Bias, Cardinals, Arizona Wildcats. We got so many great T-shirts right now available and in the upcoming months that you want to check out, phnxlocker.com. And then I also want to remind everybody, children 5 and older are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine is the best tool we have to reduce the chances of getting sick with COVID-19. The vaccine can reduce the risk of being hospitalized or dying from the disease. It's safe, free, and highly effective, and vaccines are available throughout Arizona. Visit azhealth.gov/findvaccine for a location nearest to you. So I want to wrap up a lot of our Kliff and Keim discussion with a couple quick points that I took away, non-Kyler related. I think we mentioned it. Cornerback appears like it's going to be a priority in free agency. I think that's definite. I also don't get the sense that I think we could lose James Conner and Chase Edmonds. Yeah. I think based on their comments, Kliff said you'd love to have both of them back. Steve said it's about dollars and cents. The pricing, they're going to speak with their reps, but you just don't know. I want your opinion. Do you feel like we could see an overhaul of the roster a little bit this offseason?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Which sounds funny for a team that did win 11 games.
Yeah.
And they went to the playoffs. But the way it all just fell apart, that's the thing you have to kind of look at and figure out. And clearly you don't have the dudes in-house to be able to prevent something like that from happening. I don't feel like, man, this is going to sound really weird to say, I don't feel like Keim is on as much as a hot seat as Kliff Kingsbury.
It doesn't feel like it. He's looked pretty loose today.
Well, I just listen, man. That guy was talking the talk and walking the walk today. And I'm not gonna lie, I was impressed. Like I was, and I've heard him speak a million times, but it was like, listen, he came in here with a plan. He knew exactly what we were going to ask. He's been prepping.
Yeah.
He understands. But he also understands that this franchise is at a crossroads. And Kyler Murray is kind of at a point right now where his development is going to dictate whether or not Kliff Kingsbury himself stays in the fold or not.
Yeah.
Because if I'm Keim, I can always say, I made the move to get Kyler Murray. Kliff has taken him as far as he can. It's time for a change, a new outlook, and somebody that can develop Kyler Murray into the player that he's going to be. We need to make that move. I'm going to be okay. I truly believe that right now.
Couple other quick notes. They did mention that they need to do a better job getting Xavier Collins and Isaiah Simmons more snaps. Take that for what you will. J.J. Watt presumably will be healthy soon. I believe Keim made a comment right after the Super Bowl. He was in the weight room, very active. I expect to see a lot of J.J. Watt this offseason, especially if Kyler Murray's not around, leading the charge, leading the huddle, leading the group. Should have no limitations this offseason. We didn't have an opportunity to connect on DeAndre Hopkins. I would hope that he is fully recovered from his lower body surgery that he had late in the season. And then just, that sense of urgency that they feel like they need to be able to hit on pick 23, because Keim did not dismiss trading more picks for players, but it certainly doesn't sound like that pick's going to be 23.
You mean this season?
Yeah.
You don't think they're going to pick at 23?
No, I don't think that they're going to trade away pick 23 for a veteran.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, listen, and even Steve Keim was like, "Yeah, we're the only NFC West team."
He's very proud of that.
Yeah, we're the only NFC West team with a draft pick in the first round. And I felt like he kind of winked at you and smiled. When he said that, I was like, "All right, guy." Yeah. So, listen, man, they got a plan. If I feel confident in that they have a plan.
They do.
And they understand some of their missteps along the way. And they all talked about how when all three of them were together for the first time, and mainly Kliff and Kyler, that it was drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And it was a lot to take on because there's a lot of education that has to go on for a first-time head coach in the NFL, bringing in all the coaches behind him to support him and trying to help him navigate all these things in addition to trying to get the most out of his offensive guruism, if you will. And Kyler, much the same.
Yeah.
All at the same time. That's a lot to handle. And I think sometimes we of overlooked that part. But this is a results business.
Yeah.
And if you don't give us what we want, you're on the next boat out. There's just no way.
Kliff did mention that they feel like they are getting closer in the NFC West, much more competitive as opposed to their first 2 years. And yes, they did finish second, even though nobody remembers that because the Niners and the Rams are in the NFC title game. So take that for what you will. They feel like they're making progress. You be the judge. We will be here all week
Espo, get
live
out of the chat.
in
Get
Indianapolis
out of
for
the
the
chat,
NFL
With
Combine.
this trash comment.
What did he say?
He said, only NFC West team with a losing record in the playoffs this year, too. Well, the Seahawks didn't fucking make it, okay? That doesn't count.
Hey, the Suns are what are they 1-2 in their last 3 games? Espo, give us a break, all right, my man. We're trying to get off-season wins here while you're taking regular season L's.
Don't be a troll in the
Come on,
comments,
my
Espo.
man. Everybody else other than Espo, be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts.
We're not done yet.
What?
I got questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, so we heard a lot of chatter today, and one of the chatter things that I thought I wanted to throw out your way is if it could be done.
Okay.
Now, I don't think it could be done, but if it could be done.
Oh, no.
The Giants GM literally said, like, hey, we're open for business.
Don't say this next thing you're about to say to me because you tried to tell me off air, and I did not want to hear it.
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't think I tried to mention this off air.
Maybe it was my dad that said this, and now you're about – this is eerie.
I mean, would we want a Saquon Barkley in the house?
So I talked to my dad 30 minutes before the show, and he brought up Saquon Barkley. That's eerie. Hell no. Didn't Saquon Barkley go second overall, which means his cap hit this year is gross for a running back that can't stay healthy? Hell no. Take a running back, 4th, 5th round this year, pair him with a free agent. Did we not learn last year with the tandem that they had, a very successful tandem, made no money? Pay the receivers, pay the pass rushers. If they trade for a Barkley or somebody like that, I will literally vomit in my shoe. I can't. That's how the Cardinals used to operate, right? Well, hell, why don't we go get Rashad Mendenhall and Emmitt Smith? We'll get all these.
Rashad Mendenhall has never been Saquon Barkley. Come on.
Well, he was a former first round. The Cardinals love to take chances on guys like that and overpay, or at least they used to. The James Conner pick was shrewd. Goodness, if they trade for Saquon Barkley and don't bring back James Conner, it just shows you everything that's wrong with this franchise.
At least we're not going to make a trade for Deshaun Watson like the Broncos are.
That's true. The Broncos, yes, we're poking ribs here.
Yay!
Get out
what's
of
going
here.
on?
Somebody tried to mute me.
Yeah.
And that voice you guys hear is the lovely Allie Monroy from DNVR. She is our producer for today, so shout out to her.
Yeah, so I'm going to come in here and say, stop that right now. The comments from earlier today as well. No one's trying to sabotage you. A circuit broke, but we're back. We were good. And, yeah, the Broncos are not going to trade
The Broncos
for Deshaun
were
Watson.
Basically what the beginning of our show was.
Yeah.
And that was a train wreck this season.
Well,
They
that's
deserve
true.
all
It's
the
true.
Kenny Pickett's in the world. They're refreshing his Twitter feed as it happens here. They can't wait for Malik Willis to run this 40. And meanwhile, with our Pro Bowl quarterback, we are going to sign off. We will be back tomorrow live from the NFL Combine, 3 p.m. Arizona time.
And we also do have a crossover episode.
We do.
With the DNVR folks that you guys can check out later on today. It's just kind of our own general thoughts on what's going on here at the Combine and the cool stories, the big takeaways, and yeah, you can enjoy that.
If you're hungry for player evals and interviews, that will be coming up the rest of this week. But for now, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.